exactly the drive and the originality that will help you win in May and become the next Conservative Mayor of London. And I tell you, conference, I knew when it was going to be all right, that extraordinary election in May. It wasn't the Ed Stone, the heaviest suicide note in history. It wasn't the mysterious case of his second kitchen. It was when I was walking along one of those furiously contested high streets in north-west London, where one week the Tory posters went up, only to vanish next week in favour of the Labour posters. And we were busy restoring the Tory posters when a shopkeeper told me that he had definitely made up his mind and he was switching right across from Labour to Tory, because he just didn't think that Labour under Ed Miliband would be on the side of a business like his. And then another shopkeeper said exactly the same thing, and then another, and I was so struck that evening I texted the Prime Minister. No profanities involved, I absolutely promise. And I said, mate, we are going to win this thing. And we did, didn't we? We won that seat. I think it was Bob Blackman's. We won that seat, and we won plenty of other London seats that the pundits said we would lose. We won in Twickenham, where Tanya, wonderful Tanya, evicted Vince Cable. We won in Kingston. We won in Kingston with James Berry. We won in Sutton with Paul Scully. We won because we had superb candidates. We won because we had a superb campaign director in Linton Crosby, who seems unfortunate to have been hired by the Australian rugby team. But above all, we won because of the persistence and the calm and the patience of David Cameron and his extraordinary prime ministerial qualities that contrasted so starkly with his Labour opponent. We won because the British people did not trust Ed Miliband to manage the economy. And so it is unbelievable now to see that the Labour Party has been piratically captured in a kind of social media twitstorm by what Harold Wilson once called a small group of politically motivated men. And I know these people, my friends, some of them are out there today, actually. I know them. They are the London Labour Party. Trots and militants with vested interests, and indeed interesting vests. They are the people who idolise Hugo Chavez and toast the revolution in taxpayer-funded vintage Burgundy. I know them because we have fought them and beaten them twice in London. And the reason I first wanted to get into that fight 8 years ago is that I'm fundamentally opposed to that style of politics. They have the same ruthless methods as the old colonialists that they purport to despise. In that they believe in divide and rule. Where there is a grievance, they foment it. Where there is sectarianism, they take sides. Where there are racial or religious or ethnic divisions, their instinct is always to play them up. And of course, there is one conflict that they relish above all others, and that is economic class war. The belief that you can exalt the poor and the needy by bashing wealth creators, imposing punitive taxation, and in the words of John McDonnell, an avowed Marxist who is seriously putting himself forward as the man to run one of the biggest economies in the world, fermenting, F-E-R-M-E-N-T-I-N-G, fermenting the destruction of capitalism. And I know there's a generation of young people out there who cannot remember communism and who think it might be a good idea to ferment anti-capitalism as if it were some fruity alco-pop. And so I say to all those £3 Corbynistas, we tried that. We tried fermenting anti-capitalism in the Soviet Union. We tried fermenting that brew in Britain in the 1970s. And the result has been the kind of toxic moonshine that makes you blind. Folks, give that hooch a miss. We don't believe. we Conservatives don't believe in destroying capitalism because for all its faults, capitalism is the best means humanity has yet found for satisfying our wants and needs. We believe in using capitalism to deliver social and economic progress. And we do it in a one-nation way, by bringing people together. And I hesitate to return to the rugby. But I'm afraid there was a lesson from that agonizing match at Twickenham the other night. I speak as somebody whose happiest formative afternoons were spent as a tight head prop, which is the guy on the right, a really agricultural position. Apart from the grunting and heaving, the crucial thing you have to do, and squelching, the crucial thing you have to do as a tight head, in fact, just about the only thing you have to do as a tight head, apart from grunting and heaving and so on, and trying to stop the other guy sticking his fingers up your nose, the only thing you have to do is bind on tightly and correctly. In my case, it was to the hooker. Insert joke here, as Jeremy Corbyn's auto cue would doubtless say. It's the rugby. It's the rugby scrum that provides a metaphor for my political beliefs. Because our lives are not about what we do as individuals. Our lives are really a gigantic collective effort in which one person's bulk makes up for another person's slightness of stature, and where everyone is so tightly bound together that one person's forward progress drives another person's forward progress. And that is the society we need. Not just a big society, though I believe in that, but a united society, where the different elements are bound together by an irreducible set of values. Democracy and freedom and equality under the law. Nobody say those ideas are trite or trivial. Not in a Britain where men and women are now segregated at university societies, or where young girls are suffering the abomination of female genital mutilation. And I applaud the work of those two fantastic London MPs, Justine Greening and Jane Ellison, for their campaign against a vice that has been tolerated for far too long. For far too long, in the name of political correctness. I want a Britain united by a command of the English language. When I meet people who have been here for decades, in our city, in London, very often women, without learning that essential tool of economic participation, I think it's not just a failure to integrate, but a kind of oppression. The logical consequence of the politically correct, multicultural looniness of the left. And if dear Jezza is wondering whether to sing the national anthem, can I recommend that he comes to City Hall for our annual citizenship ceremony, where people from around the world queue to have a selfie. Not with me, but with a picture on an easel of the Queen. Not because of who she is or what she has necessarily done in the last 63 years of service, extraordinary record though that is. It's because of what she represents, the continuity of the great free institutions of this country, the ideas that she incarnates of our democracy and the sovereignty of the Crown in Parliament. And if people are to be loyal to those ideas, then it is vital that our democracy is healthy and vibrant and truly representative. And that means getting the right deal now from our EU partners. And I know David Cameron can. Helping to restore trust in Parliament by making sure that new laws affecting the British public are made by people the British public can kick out at elections. And it should be up to this Parliament and to this country, not to Jean-Claude Juncker, to decide if too many people are coming here. Because it's not. it's not that we object to immigration, let alone immigrants in themselves. And I speak to you, obviously, as the proud great-grandson, and I see two other proud great-grandchildren, by the way, in the front row, of a Turk who fled his country, Turkey, in fear of his life, to Wimbledon for some reason, but almost exactly 100 years ago, and who then went back and was unfortunately assassinated by his political opponents, a fate I intend to avoid. And I understand how immigrants feel, but the question is about who decides. It's about who is ultimately responsible. It's about control. And you loosen the bonds that should unite society if people feel that their elected politicians have abdicated their ability to control things that ought, frankly, to be within their power. And when you look at what's happening in Greece, where economic independence is being sacrificed on the altar of the euro, you could not say that democracy in Europe was in good health. And we in Britain should be sticking up for it as we have for the last 100 years, because those are our British values. Shared language, shared cultural assumptions, shared confidence in our political institutions. These are the ties that unite our society. And yet they're not powerful enough on their own. Not if the economic gap between us is allowed to grow too big. And I'm speaking just as about the only politician to have spoken out consistently in favor of bankers, my friends. There's a ripple of applause there for bankers. Thank you. I say we One Nation Tories cannot ignore the gulf in pay packets that yawns wider year by year. In 1980, a chief executive of a FTSE 100 company earned about 25 times the average salary of his or her employees. What do you think the multiple is today, folks? Anybody got any ideas? 25 times, 50, 100? The answer is 130 times. And there are some gigantic self-appointed sequoias who pay themselves 780 times the salary of the little shrublets that they employ. And I say people will accept that. They will accept that, but only on certain conditions. Only if they feel that this dynamic, entrepreneurial, high-reward capitalist system is actually helping to take everyone forward. We will accept it if and only if they pay their taxes, rich corporations and rich individuals. If, and only if, those firms pay their employees decently. And it's great that a giant retailer like Lidl is paying not only the minimum wage, but the London living wage. And we must make sure, as we reform welfare and as we cut taxes, that we protect the hardest working and the lowest paid. Retail staff, cleaners, the people who get up in the small hours, work through the night, because they have dreams about what they and their families can achieve. The people without whom my economy, the London economy, would simply collapse. The aspiring, striving, working people. That the Labour Party at the moment is simply leaving behind. And then there's an even more important requirement if we're to unite our society. And that is that there must be opportunity and a sense of opportunity. And it is Conservative policies on housing, building more new homes in London now than any point in the last 35 years. On transport, the biggest investment in infrastructure since the days of Queen Victoria. On education, the schools revolution that we've led, epitomised by Catherine Beerbohm-Singh's incredible Times Table spouting, Shakespeare reciting school in Brent. Those policies are creating opportunity where there was none. Take those policies together with our natural instincts to cut taxes, cut red tape, help business and enterprise, and you can see why there has been a jobs boom in London, with unemployment, youth unemployment at its lowest level for 25 years, 400,000 people lifted out of poverty since I became mayor. And the point I want respectfully to make to our crusty friends outside this hall is that it is actually sensible one nation policies in London that have disproportionately benefited the poorest. And let me explain why. If crime hits the poorest hardest, and it does, you're far more likely to be burgled, I'm afraid, or to be murdered if you are poor, then it is the poor who have the most to gain from falls in crime. If you're poor in London, you're more likely to send your kids to a school where the air is seriously polluted. If you're poor, your kids are 40% more likely to die or to be seriously injured in a road traffic accident. If you're poor, your kids are far more likely to die in a domestic fire. And so if you reduce all those evils, as we have in the last 8 years, crime down almost 20%, the murder rate down 50%, air pollution, NOx down 20%, deaths on the road down 40%, deaths from fire down 50%, then you're actually doing something for social justice. You're doing something for fairness. And let me give you this, and if you're not convinced by that, let me give you this final knockout point for all those who think that inequality has increased, because they're wrong. There is one simple way in which we have a more united society, and that is in our ability to spend more time on this earth in good health with our families. Just since I've been mayor, I'm proud to say, life expectancy has gone up in London by 18 months for women and 19 months for men. Men are catching up, obviously. And there are parts of the Harrow Road now where life expectancy at birth is 97. I don't know what monkey glands or royal jelly they apply in the Harrow Road, but you live longer under the Tories, my friends. And yet, it is the most extraordinary. It is the most extraordinary and counterintuitive statistic that it is the poorest who are seeing the biggest gains in life expectancy, so that the gap in average life expectancy between the richest and the poorest parts of our city has actually diminished from about 5 years when I became mayor to about 3 years today. And of course, that gap is still disgraceful. But it is progress that we are seeing. It is the cause of social justice. It is one nation tourism of the kind that we are fighting for. I'm immensely proud of what's been achieved in the last 7.5 years under a Tory mayoralty. And I thank my brilliant and indomitable team, so many of them represented here in this hall, led by my irrepressible Chief of Staff, Sir Edward Lister. Where is he? Three of them. I've become very happy to say I've become MP for Uxbridge and South Ruislip, which is an absolute joy, but three of the rest of the team have gone on also to become MPs. Kit, Victoria, James, fantastic to see you here and in Parliament. We began in 2008 with a crisis that many people said would knock London off its perch as the world's greatest city, as the world's financial capital. We come now to the final furlongs with London, the #1 city for banking, for bioscience, for media, for culture, for theatre, for cocktail bars, and for just about everything else, with our capital installed for the second year running with 18.8 million international visitors as the #1 international tourist destination, the world's most popular city under the Conservatives. We have upgraded the tube so massively that it is now carrying 25% more passengers than it was when I was elected, every day. And that is because we have cut delays on the tube by more than 50%. We are delivering Crossrail on time and on budget, the biggest engineering project in Europe. We have not only staged the world's greatest ever Olympic Games, but we have secured a sensational physical legacy at the Olympic Park in Stratford, so that London is now the only Olympic city to have found a long-term private sector future for all 7 of its sporting venues. To say nothing of what we are doing with the Chancellor's help with the Olympicopolis, the new Victoria and Albert Museum on the park, the first ever Smithsonian Museum outside the United States. If you look around the map of London, around the clock, from Old Oak to Enfield to Stratford to Croydon to Battersea, we are seeing our city rebuilt and regenerated on a scale that has not been achieved for centuries. And we are doing it in a way that is sensitive to the environment and that it improves the quality of people's lives. And we've introduced, as you know, thousands and thousands of new bikes, very, very popular new cycle highways, cleaner buses, cleaner taxis. We've got hundreds of thousands of Londoners volunteering, doing fantastic things, mentoring kids, teaching them to read, planting tens of thousands of trees across our city. And in spite of all this frenzy of activity, we have done the right, the correct, the Tory thing. We have cut council tax year on year. In fact, we've cut council tax overall by 27%, my friends. And it is wonderful. It is wonderful now to see so much of the London agenda being rolled out across the country, and to hear these policies just in the last few days. Fiscal devolution with our great English cities free to spend the business rates that they raise. A new national living wage, pooling pension funds, as we've done already with Lancashire, to create a £500 million sovereign wealth fund for infrastructure. New rules on strike ballots to stop hard-working people being held to ransom by a tiny minority. In fact, the only type of crime currently going up is the theft of City Hall policies. A crime by central government, a crime, by the way, I entirely condone and support. And we're not done yet. We come now to what we in City Hall call Operation Juddering Climax. We will go ahead with all the things that we need to do. We will defeat the haters of beauty, and we will install a wonderful new garden bridge. We will extend the Northern Line to Battersea, or the Wandsworth Powerhouse, as it is probably now called in the Treasury. We will get our city the night tube it needs, and thanks to the support of the Prime Minister and the Chancellor, I am confident that we will get Crossrail 2 in the ground by the end of the next decade. Because you cannot be a builder in London without Crossrail 2, a project that delivers 200,000 new homes for our people. And if we are going to build new airport capacity, let's not bodge it with one runway in the wrong place in a short-termist, old, failed, tired, and environmentally disastrous solution. One of the many things, Zach, on which you and I are at one. Let's compete with every other major economy, from Germany to France to Spain to Holland to India to every Gulf state to Turkey to China, and do the job properly this time in this confident and great and progressive generation, with the hub airport that we will need for the country that most reputable forecasts believe will overtake Germany by 2050 as the most powerful, the most dynamic, and the largest economy in Europe. That's what we need to do. We've done so much. We've done so much, and we have so much to look forward to. Are we now going to fumble that ball, kid? Are we going to knock it forward beneath the feet of, there's another great prop, beneath the feet of our political foes? Are we going to knock that ball forward? And what an enemy they are. Did you see them? Well, I came into the conference area yesterday. We had to go through a kind of Khyber pass with protesters on either side hurling eggs and water bombs. I don't know, some of you may have had spitting and things. Some of you may have had the same experience. Were we intimidated? No. Will we give up our plans under their protests and take this country forward? No. Will we surrender to the hard left agitators, preposterously supported by Jeremy Corbyn, who believe in these tactics and who want to divide our society? No, we won't. In fact, I drew only one conclusion from that event, and that is that we need to do even more to support the wonderful Tracy Crouch and to encourage more sport in schools, particularly ball games, because they managed to miss me with every single projectile that they threw. And if that isn't a Tory policy, if that isn't a Tory policy, I don't know what is. They managed to miss me just as Labour missed the lesson of that election in May. Because it wasn't just about rejecting Miliband and Salmond and Sturgeon and all the other fishy characters. It was because people, so many people now believe, seeing what David Cameron and the last government delivered, that if they stick with us, then this country could truly be on the verge of something great. And they see the difference between Tories and the extreme left that's taken over the Labour Party. The extreme left is always willing to believe the worst about this country and its history and its institutions. And it's we Tories who are always ready to believe the best about the British people, what we stand for, and what we can do. And that is why I am a Conservative, and a one-nation Conservative. And as we drive for the line, to pick up this metaphor, which has probably gone on for too long, but never mind, as we drive for the line now, with the ball at our feet, I want us all to bind on hard, as I said. And I want us all to work together to get Zach Goldsmith elected for 4 more years in May of solid, progressive, one-nation, Conservative government in London, with a party united in our ambition to unite our society. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.